like to say, emphasise that the farmers are protesting today because they've been ignored since the strike ended. And I'm asking the Minister here for Agriculture to set up this task force as soon as possible. I know that you had a hiccup the first time you tried to get it going, but now you have to re-emphasise that this needs to be set up as soon as possible. Beef is still on the ground at 3.45 being quoted this week still, and farmers are going to the wall unless something's done about it. And you need also, just to re-emphasise that you need to recognise all elements of farming, or you won't bring them all on board unless you recognise all elements of the farming representation.
Thank you, Lascan Corlin. I'd like to thank my colleagues for raising the matter. I, as well as the Government and the deputies who have spoken support and recognise the difficulties in the beef sector in particular and in agriculture generally, and that's why the Government in 2019 alone put forward funding of an additional €120 million to support incomes in that challenged sector. And I think if you look at the Taugust 2020 results published today, they do reflect the fact that financial support has been available to that sector in the context of a difficult environment. It is not true to say, apart from those schemes, that the Government isn't supporting them. And I could list from the exceptional aid measures, the environmental efficiency programme, the additional ANC payments which have been increased to €250 million, the extension of the disadvantaged areas themselves, the beef data and genomics project, a whole host of financial support available to that specific sector in the agricultural community. I want to deal with the issue, deputies, regarding the beef market task force, because that is one of the tangible outcomes of the negotiations that were held. And I, like all members of the House, would like to see that task force meet. In the interim, as we try to bridge difficulties, and I'll deal with those very briefly, we have had bilateral engagement between the chairman and all of the constituent members, and it's not true to say that no progress has been made. We've had the publication of the beef market price index. We've had tenders issued by agreement by all the parties bilaterally to commission studies that were agreed at the talks. We've had a whole host of other arrangements, public consultation on unfair trading practices with the idea of a regulator for the sector. There are specific issues. There are specific issues regarding convening the task force, and I think members are quite well aware of them. It has been alluded to that injunctions still remain. They remain granted to a company that is not part of the talks in MII. And what has compounded the difficulty in having those injunctions dealt with is that senior management, and this is a matter which the Gardaí are aware of, senior management in that company have had death threats issued against them, and their partners and families have been intimidated in that local community. So this isn't simply an issue of the government not wanting to resolve this issue. We are grappling with what are very difficult issues. We've seen in other cases what happens when senior executives in companies are threatened. And, well, you made Deputy McGrath dismiss the significance of death threats against people. The government doesn't.